Well, continuing the series I started the last time where I actually talked to Miami's movers and shakers, I'm super delighted to talk today with Charlie Esnal. He's the managing director at Manatech here in Miami. And I'm curious to get his perspectives about his visual storytelling approach to drive innovation between the US and Latin America. So with that, welcome to the show, Charlie.
Thank you. Thank you, Shlomi, very much for having me. I'm excited to finally be here, able to talk to you.
Awesome. Yeah, so before we get started, I'm kind of curious to learn a little bit about your journey, how you got started and what kind of drove you to start focusing on entrepreneurship.
Interesting. It was a little bit accidental, I think, how I got into entrepreneurship. I come from a background more in the corporate world, in the travel insurance space for 7 years in different parts of the world. I started in Argentina, where I'm originally from, but then I worked in Indonesia, then I worked in Mexico, and then I came here to the US to start their operations. And I was kind of getting disenchanted, I would say, with the corporate world. So I moved out of there, and the former founder of this company that I was working with called me and said, "Look, I have this project, this idea to make a luggage locator, like a GPS for luggage."
Yep.
This was back in 2014, so there was no air tags or anything like that.
Yeah.
and the issue of lost luggage was something that we knew very well from the travel insurance world. So that's how I dove into tech and startup and entrepreneurship. It was like starting a company with a new solution that didn't exist and a new market that didn't exist. And I fell in love with it right away, like the like establishing a vision and then figuring out the best way to solve the problems that you want to solve and how to get to the next stage in your company. I learned a lot of self-learning in the process, but I also participated. Yeah, but also that's where I learned about accelerators and mentors, and you're one of them, Shlomi, for our entrepreneurs. So
yep.
And I saw the value of the community that it's surrounding an entrepreneur. If you want, it takes a village to build a startup. So
right.
Kind of that was sort of my first step, was running my own startup. I was the CEO and co-founder of this company. And we were selected to participate in an accelerator program here in Miami and another one in San Francisco. And for me, that was like mind-blowing, sort of the progress that we could make through these programs, really changing mindsets, changing ways of working, learning tools. And that was kind of what also spurred this flame of, hey, I at one point, I want to be on that side. I want to be running accelerator
entrepreneurship center,
others.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and then you kind of started the base Miami, and that's where I met you originally, right?
Yeah. So and that also came because I wanted to stay in touch with entrepreneurs, and I wanted to support them. And what I had learned running my startup here in Miami with my team in Argentina mainly. So it was like that transition of cultures and also a new ecosystem and network building here in Miami. And I said, how can I give this learning to other entrepreneurs that are going through this transition of coming to the US, trying to make it in the US market or raising money in the US market. And so that's how Base Miami was born back in 2019 with that concept of accelerating those learning curves, providing access to these networks and knowledge. And yeah, that's where we mentioned.
And the focus was also entrepreneurs from Latin America, right?
Yes, mainly Latin America. Well, when we started with Base Miami, it was Latin America focused exclusively. We worked a lot with Chile, and the Chilean government trusted us in the beginning to do some programs with them, which for us was a big validation stamp because it gave us also the opportunity of generating some larger programs for 10 to 12 entrepreneurs. Before that, we were working more one-on-one, more on a consulting basis. And then working with governments allowed us to start this group programs and that, but yeah, it was focused. So Chile, Colombia, some Argentina, Brazil. Those were the markets that we started with. Uruguay then came and joined, and well, it grew a lot. Last year we worked with 16 different countries or companies from 16 different countries. So yeah, super interesting.
Yeah, and I can just to give you a little bit context, you were kind enough to invite me as a mentor to several programs that you ran for Base Miami, and after that, Manatech. So I kind of had a inner look into the way you manage those programs, and it's been great. And before we go deep into your work today at Manatech, since we're going to talk about visual storytelling, this is the regular question I pose to all my guests. How do you define visual storytelling from your perspective?
Well, you know that there's the old saying of an image is worth more than 1,000 words. I truly believe in that. I think that if the definition, I think, is that people are more prone to understanding what you do when they can see it in action and in movement, I would say. So we are true believers in the especially in video production now and very dynamic video production. I think that the audience is focused on or used to the Instagram and the very quick information and moving to the next thing. So you need to be dynamic and you need to be at that level. So when you start telling a story and you're just standing and talking and people start to fall asleep,
right
it's like,
yeah.
Okay, so anything that you have that can show and put that the visual part on the front, I think it's something that is very important today.
Absolutely. No, that's exactly that. People has very short attention span these days, and as you said, you got to be very compelling with your visual. So let's talk a little bit about the role you're playing today at Manatech. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what is the mission of Manatech, some of the programs that you run.
Yeah, so actually I can do that by sharing an image because we're talking about visual storytelling.
Sure,
so
go ahead.
I'm gonna go through the whole presentation, but yes, this is a visual that we use a lot to explain what Manatech does, because what we're doing is we're building an entrepreneurship hub here for international founders. So our focus is on the international entrepreneurs from all over the world. So yes, we focus in Latin America in the beginning, and we are still focused in that continent and connecting the US with Latin America, creating one economy and uniting all these different ecosystems in Latam with Miami. So that's a big vision that drives us, that we believe that Latin America should be the main partner of the US, and that we should unite all these different ecosystems. I don't know if on the country level, because that's Moishe Mana, who's the founder of Mana Common and Manatech and all this development that we're doing in downtown. But that's his vision, to unite all these economies between the Latin America and the US. For us at Manatech is about uniting the ecosystems and making all these different founders and VCs and government entities and collaborate between each other, so that Latin America can really thrive. Because, just to give you an example, last year, the Latin America raised a total of $3 billion total VC money. Well, wow. Only Miami, we did about 5.5 billion. So almost double in Miami. There's VC money, almost double of what all Latin America can do together. So that's kind of part of that's one of the focuses that we have. But we're also welcoming other entrepreneurs from all over the world. We had people from Poland, we had people from Finland, and we're slowly growing also outside of Latam. But in essence, we want Manatech to be the place where any international entrepreneur that is thinking of the US, that can think of Miami first, and that can think of Manatech as the place to go to. And we do that we call this the Manatech circles. That's why it's join the circle of Manatech. As you can see there's a circle right in the center that is diffused, and it's a circle that combines these four initiatives that we have. And programs is what we were doing with Base Miami, what you were talking before, acceleration programs, and we've worked with over 200 international startups in that space, and we're continuously running programs. Actually, we have now, and one of the immersion program is open application now, so anybody that wants to apply can do that. But then Manatech grew beyond the program. So, and why? Because we are in downtown, and I'll talking about the spaces. What is spaces is actually physical locations, buildings, offices, co-working spaces, and I'll recur also to the visual here, because look at, if you can see this,
right?
We are.
Oh wow!
This is
that's incredible.
This is that's downtown Miami, the Flagler district, and most of the buildings that you see there are owned by Moishe Mana and the Mana Group. So
Yep.
Our our spaces initiative that I was sharing here, it's about that. It's about, okay, how can we adapt and make these different buildings open for innovation, for startups, for different ecosystem players. So we're launching our first co-working space here in downtown in May, and that's going to be our, I call it the lab, to make sure that the dynamics in the spaces are attractive enough to make people go back to the office, because
Right.
I think there's a challenge there of people not wanting to go back to the office. So
Yeah.
it has to be a place where things happen. There's activity, there's connections, there's things that you can do. If not, then what's the point of going to the office?
No,
And the other two, and I'll close with this, but we have other two initiatives. One is venture, so investing in these startups. As we get to know them and work with them, we're going to be able to invest in them. And then events, we have last year we had 70 events in our spaces here in downtown Miami alone.
Yep.
So we believe it's a very important component to help the center people here, the entrepreneurs, with all these different tools that we're building.
No, that's incredible. And I participate in several of those programs and events, and I can attest it's a wonderful, dynamic space for entrepreneurs. And as you said, just because of the strategic location of Miami as a launchpad for Latin America, this is a great initiative. Let's talk a little bit about, before we dive into examples, what is your kind of visual storytelling philosophy when you try to manage the success of those 4 programs, the ventures, the accelerator, the events, any kind of unifying philosophy or strategy that you apply?
Well, I mean, in terms of visuals, we believe that brand identity and people recognizing your brand and icons around the brand are super important. So we try to keep that always in what we know, from banners to different corporate, and I'll show you here again. Sorry that I'm moving around, but this big icon that you see there on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
That's part of our brand identity. So we put it physically there in the events. And then we believe we use video as our main retailing tool, video and images. We're constant every event, and we invest in that as well, because it's, you have to pay for the videographers and the production. And we have that very ingrained in our culture. Every time that we have an activity that we're going to be doing, whether it's a program or an event, we have the videographers and we try to interact a lot with the people that are in the events as well, telling their stories, but also always mixing it with images in behind. So and actually, maybe again, showing is better than telling.
Let's go it. Great.
Yeah, so I can show you. I had some things ready here, but just to give you an idea of the way that we try to show what we do. And as you see, it's very dynamic. We show, of course, the people that are important in the ecosystem that can share and collaborate with these founders. But you see, we have always our brand presence with the Mana Tech, the Miami Immersion Program, which is the name of the program. And you can see here, there's a lot of, we show people more than anything, because we want to, the important thing is the connections that you make. Our slogan or our motto is connections that make a difference. So we want to show that what the founders are doing is really connecting with other people, whether it's other founders, it's mentors, it's experts, it's investors.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, and if you see also the different exercises or events that are happening within one, and this is only in 1 week of a program that is called the Miami Immersion Program, where they come here for a week. And if you see there's things that are also maybe call attention, there were a bunch of founders on the floor breathing. So it's what is that? Because we also incorporate wellness into the programs, because we believe that mental and physical health is super important for an entrepreneur to be at its peak. So, but this is just an example of the dynamism that we have. And if you go to our on social media and Instagram, etc., we always have very short and quick clips, and they're very fresh. As soon as even throughout as the events are happening, we're posting things with images, with videos, pictures, etc. So this, I think, is the best sample of how we see visual storytelling when we're trying to share what we do.
Yeah, no, I think you definitely hit it right on the head. I think, that your focus on like the facial expression of, entrepreneurs and focusing on people is really important, because that's how you can actually convey emotions to your audience and to other potential entrepreneurs that potentially can see themselves in a future story by joining Manatech. So I think it's a great approach.
Mm-hmm. When we ask entrepreneurs what's the best that you got out of this program, or and besides, of course, the learning, the connections, it's the people and it's the relationships building that happens, and that's part of what we have as in the vision of Manatech, is that when you bring people from 8 different countries, and a lot of these countries have very similar dynamics, and so the guy that is innovating, doing solving a problem in I don't know, in Guatemala, might have the solution for the same problem in the guy that comes from Honduras, and then they start talking, and hey, but what you do is complementary to what I do, so then I can bring your product and take it to my market.
Collaborations, basically.
Exactly, and that's how it happens, So. But there's also learning. That's why there's also, these are, and this is something like when you're doing your mentorship, for example, this is the kind of setting. So it shows that it's very relaxed and very close. It's not a formal, conference room.
Yeah, it's very casual.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the idea. And this is the team also, or part of our team. And I think that's another thing that we try to also show, that we are people ourselves, we are entrepreneurs, we're there for you, and yet try to keep it as warm as possible in terms of when we're showing images of what we're doing.
Tell me, Charlie, based on your experience so far, have you found any story type that really works well? For example, interview with the entrepreneurs versus just a coverage of events.
Yes, so we have, and actually we had some pieces that were the ones that had the most readership, and it was video, and also we turned it into an article as well. But it was about, we call them the founders' journeys, and this is the founders just telling their story, how things started and what they had to go through, and how they surpassed a lot of these obstacles. And I think that's what resonates the most with the audience, when you have a founder in front of a camera telling their story, and also of course testimonials. We use that a lot, because no one better than somebody that went through the program to tell you what they got out of it. And we're super proud. Like, we just came back from Uruguay. There's a big tech event in January in Uruguay every year. Uruguay is becoming a mini hub also in the southern part of Latin America. The government is doing a lot of things to position Uruguay as a place where entrepreneurs can go and kind of set up shop for expansion as well. And we were we had a couple of events, and we had in one event, I counted at least 10 founders that had already gone through our programs. And when a founder would come to me, talk to me about what we do, then some other founder would come and say, "No, these guys are amazing because they do this and that, and they help this with that," and just that, like capturing that and having those people talk about what we do with such passion is like much better than what I can do selling what we do, right? It's
absolutely
okay, you sell it for me because you do it better.
Yeah. And speaking about that, I'm kind of curious, obviously you generate a lot of stories from the programs, the accelerator programs that you run, but do you also have any kind of stories generated from your alumni, people that actually graduated from your programs, and you're still keeping them in touch and kind of spreading the word out for you?
Yeah, that's that. I mean, those are the ones that we call in. For example, we do, even now, every time that we have a new program coming up, we do a webinar for anybody that is interested in the program that wants to join, and then we bring alumni to the webinar. So they come and we have 2 or 3 of the alumni that sit down there and just discuss, not only what they learned, but also what happened after, how we kept supporting them. Some of them that are already in Miami, like we have about already 11 companies that went through our programs that are in Miami working and that have hired people and that have offices here. So
Success
bringing those
stories.
people,
Yep.
yeah. So bringing those people into the conversations is something that for us is super important, because it's not only about the program, which is kind of the first step. It's also what happens after. And on that we are launching now, because we didn't have it formalized. We did it very informally. Now we're formalizing like an actual Manatech community that is going to be focused on these alumni and continuing that journey with us, and not just because what happened was they come to the program and then after a week it's like, okay, this is great, what's next, you know? So now
Yeah,
we
exactly.
have
It's like a network that continued to grow, and people can share information and tips and collaborations beyond the original program. Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I'm kind of very curious, since you've been doing this for a while now, based in Miami, what do you find like is the common misconception about LATAM founders that you often need to mystify?
I think that there's a lot. No, but I think that the first one is that, oh, I made it in blank, whether it's Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, Chile, and I'm a hot shot in my market, so I'm gonna go to the US and it's gonna be easy. And I think that mindset of like, it's easy, or I know how to do it. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. We call it the non-coachable founder, and we try not to to be honest, it's part of our selection process as well, like not to work a lot with with founders like that, because it's hard for them to allow to be coached and to understand
not
that,
flexible
okay,
enough. Yeah.
yeah. So I guess the flexibility, but that's why I call it mindset, because there's two mindset issues that we see. One is that one, the one that thinks the know-it-all, and I think it's very easy. And then another one is the one that maybe it's the other way around. It's like, okay, I cannot make it in the US because I don't know how, and I don't have the tools, and that those are the ones that we work with, like, because we want to show them. And that's a lot of what happens after the programs. They tell us like, okay, my mind shifted, from, because they come from maybe a smaller economy and like a market that they know very well, but also it's limited. And then suddenly they come here, they see people from all over the world, and Miami as a global city, and the community that lives here, and it just changes their mindset in terms of what their goals can be, and what they can achieve really if they put their effort. So yeah, mindset, I would say it's one. And then the other one is, I think it's a challenge as well, is the generalist versus specialists. And so in Latin America specifically, sometimes you need to sell everything to everybody, kind of, in order to grow and to have a market, because markets
there's no segmentation, basically, no focus on a specific target.
Exactly. So that's something that we see, that when they come here, we work a lot on that, on like, no, you have to find the niche of the niche to start, and also make sure that you're solving the problem for that specific niche, and then think of growing. But reducing that initial scope of market so that they can generate some traction is another one of the big challenges that we see.
Interesting.
So yeah, those are some. There's more, but
yeah, I'm sure. No, this is fascinating. Yeah, but I can definitely see that, that those that are, confident versus those that are too scared, but you make them realize there's definitely a roadmap for you to make it happen. So this is awesome.
No, and talking about the storytelling side and the visual side, we work a lot on their pitch as well. That's how, because the end goal of the programs is that you have to present your company in 4 minutes in front of an audience, and so you have to be ready for that. And we work a lot on that. And I always try to work with them on the story, talking about the storytelling in the first part, like, the first 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Like, you only have one chance to make a great first impression. And that emotional connection with the audience needs to happen right away. So I sometimes their own story is what we try to bring to the table, like, tell me very quickly who you are and why you're doing this. That's kind of something that, and those, I think, are the most successful founders, the ones that are able to just
convey their
understand that there's a
personality, the backstory, why
yeah,
they do what they do, not the what
yes,
initially.
yes.
Yeah. One of the other question I want to ask you is, since you're based in Miami, what are your thoughts about the Miami tech ecosystem?
That's a good question, Shlomi, because it's something that I'm a big supporter of the ecosystem and a driver, and I think that we are part of this. How can I say? Hope for creating a tech hub and an entrepreneurship hub here in Miami. I
Yep.
think there's a long ways to go. I think we need a lot of resources to make
Mhm.
it a reality. I mean, to give you an example, we in Manatech, we are self-funded. Actually, Moishe, who's a a private investor, is investing because he believes also in what we're doing. But there's definitely a need for more governmental support, more corporates, especially. Also, I think there's a gap between the tech ecosystem and the large corporations. There's not a lot of large corporations in Miami that are actively participating in building out this ecosystem. The talent is also an area that needs to evolve, but there's efforts being made there for sure by different universities and also supports from, for example, the Knight Foundation that has been involved in talent pipeline development. And I think that Miami's future as an ecosystem is a global one. That's why I think that this connection with the international, more mature ecosystems and bringing that talent and that maturity level from other parts of the world to Miami is something that can really help just accelerate the development of the ecosystem. Yeah. I believe in it. I think that we are in the right path. We're seeing a lot of good indicators, from funds moving to Miami, which is the main part. Like money is coming to the ecosystem. That's very important. And there's a big community that is interested in the growth of the ecosystem, and there's a lot of collaboration happening. I think that that's one of the differentials that we have here in Miami, is that everybody's kind of, okay, how can we help each other? How can we support each other to make this grow?
No, I
and I think that that's, yeah, I think that's powerful for an ecosystem, especially when it's in its early days. So I'm hopeful and willing to work with the community to make it happen.
No, definitely. And we also seen some spike in lots of startups that relocated after the pandemic to Miami, which is another great benefit for the ecosystem.
Yes, that's what I mean. I think we have a great advantage, from a geographical standpoint, from the multicultural community that we have, the diversity, that of course that the lifestyle is also something that founders are more and more looking for. It's that work-life balance is important, and Miami is a great place to live. And so I think that it has differentials that other cities do not have. I think that we still need to work on the infrastructure and the hard components of the ecosystem, because the soft ones, I think, we're strong, but the hard ones, I think, is the ones that we need to work on.
Got it. Just to close, I'm kind of curious, as the managing director of Manatech, what would you say your top 3 tips for other entrepreneurship hub leaders that are looking to drive innovation using visual storytelling?
Well, first, I think it's get comfortable with camera and being in front of audiences and talking and just like being transparent on letting your personality flow through and be real. I think authenticity is key today in our world, because more and more your work life and your private life, it's very mingled and it's the same. So I think that like FaceTime and transparency is one of the things that I would recommend leaders to be comfortable with and to put themselves out there. Then the branding for me is key also, like being very clear on what your brand is about and what's the difference that you want to bring to this world, sort of, and having your audience and the community that supports your company understand that and get that that story right, because it's hard for entrepreneurship centers, hubs, or there's so many different things that means. So it's like, okay, so what are you, and I think that we even in the beginning, until we had a clear brand strategy. So working on your brand, on the why of your company, on having a very clear, more than anything, it's a brand strategy. Yeah, and that you respect that with everything that you do. It's important. So the talking about visual is the messaging and the imagery that you put out. It has to be very cohesive and consistent so that people can recognize what you are and what's your difference.
Yeah.
And then third, this I maybe not only for Entrepreneurship Hubs, but in general, it's the team. Like for me, the culture that you create internally in the company, and it's what you said. I mean, relating it to visual storytelling is how you tell the story also to your team, and how the team understands, and how you can reiterate this by sharing all these different moments, whether it's with videos, with images, but like making them all feel part of everything that you're doing, so that they understand the bigger picture,
ownership.
and that they are and that they're motivated exactly to operate on their own, and saying, okay, I get it. You don't need to be telling me all the time what to do, because I know what our vision is, so I know what is aligned with our brand, what is aligned with our culture. And so the team culture, I think it's super important.
I can say it better than you. I mean, it's authenticity, as you said, the brand identity, and then the teamwork, or team empowerment, I should say, to empower them to tell your brand story and feel they have a piece in that story. They actually playing a role. That's super important. So with that, I want to thank you so much for the great insights you shared today. This is incredible. And I'm curious if anyone has any question for you, how they can reach out to you.
Yes, thanks, Shlomi. Well, thank you for having me, and it's good to be able to share what we do with everybody, and how we do some of the things. It's also interesting to share. And in terms of connections, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you look for Charlie Esnal or Manatech, there we're also very active on Instagram. So follow Manatech Miami. Those are the and I don't know if you wanted me to show it, so that, because as we are finishing the visual storytelling, then maybe I should
definitely
show this. But I'm not a host anymore, so but anyways, it's Manatech Miami is the name. So follow us there, and
wonderful.
Our tagline is connections that makes a difference. So connect with us, and we can make some differences together.
Brilliant. Awesome. Thank you so much, Charlie. And for all of you watching or tuning in, I'll see you in the next episode of the Visual Storytelling Today podcast. Thank you.